What's up, guys? So let's go ahead and show how to unlock World Tier 3 in Diablo 4. So starting right off, you're just going to go to Yugioh. You want to be at about level 50 when you do this. And I say about because everyone's, gear may be different, your skill may be different than other players, but you could do this a few levels under. And I actually recommend you guys to try to attempt to do the capstone. So what is this? You're seeing the full gameplay, and I'll explain why you want to do this as soon as possible. There are going to be certain items that will never drop until you get to World Tier 3 and World Tier 4, and these are going to be much stronger items, and it really comes down to the numerical stats. So you're seeing us complete the cap over here, and that is basically a dungeon. It's a little bit longer than a normal dungeon, but pretty much it's just go over here, you kill a boss, and then you're done. You unlock the next world tier. So starting right off, the most important reason, I think some of you guys have probably already checked this out, is because over on the difficulty, you're going to see over where it says new, sacred and unique items cannot drop. This is the most important thing. And if you want to participate in the other forms of endgame content, we're talking about the nightmare sigils, those won't even drop. Basically what they do is add modifiers to a dungeon to make it a little bit more difficult and or easy depending on the special things that roll on the dungeon, but those won't even happen until you get to World Tier 3. And on top of that, you have hell tides. Hell tides are these little things where an area becomes ran over with a bunch of monsters, and it's kind of in this red zone. The red zone will have monsters that drop these cinders, and you can trade the cinders in for a different form of currency, and you can get a bunch of legendaries through that as well. And then also you can get more difficult monsters basically, but it tells you that the enemies are going to be more difficult. You get extra XP, gold, and monsters overcome resistance, so it basically makes the game much harder. But you want to try to do this as soon as possible because you want to reach the World Tier 3. Now, I'm not going to cover World Tier 4 in this video because most people just want to get to World Tier 3 ASAP, and then eventually, and it will take some time to get from World Tier 3 to World Tier 4. Basically, once you complete the campaign, if you're about level like 40-ish, I would recommend at least at level 40, see if you have the skill to do it. You can actually get carried. If you have a friend, they can help you through this, and I would recommend just have your friend carry you through it, and then kill some monsters, get some sacred pieces of gear. It'll make the gameplay so much easier because sacred items are going to be much more difficult to acquire as well. You're going to have to be able to get your pieces to all be sacred, if that makes any sense. If you play Diablo 3, think of them as ancient items. It's going to be much more powerful at the end of the day. But there is also another world tier, which is going to be World Tier 4. The difference with this one is that you will drop ancestral and unique items. The monsters are going to be more difficult, but that's kind of it to be expected, and then you get more gold and XP, and monsters will overcome more resistance. But at the end of the day, you want to get those unique items. Kind of how it works in terms of the itemization and progression in Diablo 4. This was a thing that was shown off at BlizzCon. I believe this was 2019. This is the itemization progress. So you start off with your normal items, then you can get magic, then you can get rare, and then you get your legendary items. And then you can also get ancient items. I know what this one says set. This was actually because it was part of their original plan, and then there was something called mythic items. Mythic items, more likely, maybe coming later to the game. There's also no RuneWords, but pretty much that is the itemization progression. However, after you get to the area where you can get those sacred items and ancestral items, those items as white items can be actually stronger than your rare items, and that is simply due to the amount of number that the item power has. The higher item power is more damage, more defense, but more likely you'll be swapping off those two rare ones really soon, so it doesn't really matter. This is still basically the itemization progression, but there can be ancestral and even sacred items that drop that are white that can still be better even if you have a legendary piece of gear in the earlier first stages when you start getting those things. So don't worry too much about the set and ancient sets. This is probably going to be coming out later down the line. It's just a really good kind of chart to see how the itemization progress kind of works, because after you get your legendary, then you actually get sacred, which was actually in the original plan, and then from sacred, then you get your ancients. So what is the difference between the items in terms of when you get them? Does that mean all my legendaries are basically worthless? Well, we're going to basically disenchant the items so you can still get the aspect. So it's still worth, by the way, picking up legendaries that are not sacred and that are not ancestral. You're just going to be using them for their power, if you will. That is the main reason why you would still pick them up at the end of the day, or you can just sell them for gold. So you would basically get your item and then you throw on the essence, which I'm sure a lot of you guys already know, but I felt like it was kind of important just to go ahead and cover. Now, the difference between a unique item and, let's say, a legendary or even a rare item is the unique items cannot be modified. You can get some of these, you can get upgrades on them. When you take them to the blacksmith, you can upgrade these, and you can also upgrade your other pieces of gear, but with the enchanting process, if you've played and you've crafted an item, basically you get to pick one of these. If you play Diablo 3, the same thing. You get to re-roll one of the rolls on the item, and you can keep on slamming it with some random rolls. And some of these are very important to roll. However, unique items you cannot roll. They're always going to stay the same. You can't re-roll one of the stats. But some of these items are super, super good. And this is exactly why you want to actually rush and get to the higher world tiers, as like this is a fan favorite from Diablo 2. This is Shaco over here, Harlequin Crest. So this item is insanely powerful. I mean, look at the stats on this. 1,000 life. This is huge. You get extra cooldown reduction, resource generation, and all stats, which is good for your Paragon board and obviously getting your main stats. But in addition to that, you gain +4 ranks to all skills. This is huge. So probably one of the best items in the game as far as we know. This is definitely going to be one of the most sought after items, but we're still got about like 5 minutes of gameplay. So you can see we're fighting a quad boss fight. So now going over basically kind of how the World Stone Cap works as we're going to be completing this, because it's going to be kind of a guide to it. So I might as well give you guys kind of maybe the idea on what you want to do for these bosses. I think it'd be ideal to kill some of the smaller bosses off first, but these aren't really that difficult. Again, your friend can carry you through the game in these capstones to get to the next tier. So if you do have a buddy that maybe has, you know, a little bit more experience and they're faster than you, you can do so. But after you go in this area, you defeat the quad boss, you are going to be going into a teleporter, which is actually going to send you to another area. It's basically 2 dungeons, if you will. And then so the first objective is just to basically get to the area and fight the boss. And then the next area, you just got to kill every single thing. I feel like it might be kind of redundant to have me kill every single thing on screen over here. So I might just fast forward just a little bit, but there are going to be elites in here. And this area, I would say, is a little bit more difficult than a normal like 50 area, but it's not something that it's like impossible to complete. So the first world tier, it recommends you to be at least level 50, and then to go from world tier 3 to 4. Right now we're going from 2 to 3, and you want to do this again ASAP so you can start getting your unique items as well as your legendaries that are sacred, because they're going to be much more powerful in terms of like the stats. Think of it again, if you play Diablo 3, you never really want to have a normal like legendary item. You want every single piece of your gear to be ancient, because it's just the way it works. Same thing with sacred. You want to go from your legendaries to sacred, and then you want to go from sacred to ancient. So we're just going to kill off all the enemies here. I'm going to kind of fast forward it. So it's just me killing the enemies. Again, killing the enemies, just going from different areas to clean up the small stuff. But eventually we're coming up to the boss fight, and I'll at least show off the boss fight and kind of talk about the mechanic here, because of course this is going to be a guide. But I figure you guys can understand, you kill all the enemies that are in the area. So this is the curator. So we're going to fight this boss, and there's not really anything that's super difficult with this boss other than he has this like bone prison that can lock you in. But like we're going to be locked in anyways because we're playing melee at the end of the day. So he has a few different little projectiles that he will put out, and that ability is very, very fast. So ideally you want to stay kind of behind him. It's kind of like if you played Path of Exile, if you played a lot of the Diablo world bosses, standing next to his legs is usually the best, and you kind of want him to not be facing you if possible. Obviously if you're playing solo, yeah, it can be a little bit more difficult. The reason why is because when he uses his attack that goes in a line, it's always going to be directly in front of him. So he'll shoot, I think it's like 5 different projectiles. Sometimes there's like a triple. So you can see that one goes by pretty fast, so you may want to go ahead and dodge if you're playing Necromancer. Into your Blood Mist form, playing the Sorceress, and you have the ability to go inside of the Ice Cube, you can do that as well. That tornado can actually be kind of nasty. It's kind of like Malthaels from D3. It's just something that you have to kind of position. And if you're playing melee, well, sometimes it's unfortunate because you want to DPS the whole time, but you know, there's a certain like AoE on the ground. It's not too difficult. So the thing that will have a high potential to kill you is just getting hit by that thing multiple times. But during this, I played a relatively tanky build. So if you guys were asking the difference between Twisting Blades and Flurry and why I play Flurry, I play both at the end of the day. This is the thing where it kind of like locks you in, and ideally you maybe try to move out of it, but it's really not that big of a deal. But Twisting Blades has way higher DPS, but this lets me play really aggressive because you happen to be able to get like a bunch of life on every attack, and that's why I liked Flurry for my progress. If I wanted to do things earlier than I should have, yeah, Flurry is excellent for that. So if you're having trouble and you happen to be playing Rogue, I would recommend Flurry for survivability, because it just hits many times, and every single time that you're hitting, and then you also have that on crit ability to heal with the Rogue. You can see I got my shrouds up, but for the most part, the boss is relatively easy. Unfortunately, we're playing with controller. I actually really do like playing with controller, although sometimes it'll target something super far away, and you can see we completed the capstone. We got some legendaries off of it as well, so that was really exciting to go get some pieces of gear. May be upgrades, but in this case it wasn't, so it's going to be random. I'm not sure if you get legendaries. There are certain things, if you've played the campaign, you're going to be getting like guaranteed legendary drops, but that one over here, kind of not too bad over there with that extra damage upgrade, so we can take a legendary aspect and kind of just throw it on there if I wanted to do so. I was just looking at my inventory for a little bit, but then all you got to do is you go over to the Yugioh shot, and you just go to the statue that's in the middle, and you just select the next world tier, and then now you can see over on the right side we are in world tier 3. That's basically all you need to do to complete the capstone and unlock world tier 3. And again, I recommend doing this as early as possible, as it's going to unlock new forms of endgame content, the nightmare dungeons, and a lot more. But anyways, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for the video. If you guys enjoyed it, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn on the bell if you'd like to see more. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Check the pinned comment if you'd like to see more content.